In the darkness of that unforgettable night, the illusion of security crumbled in an instant. Suddenly, the skies over Moscow erupted with chaos, a relentless swarm of nearly 300 drones launched by Ukraine, turning the city's heart into a battlefield. The government's carefully crafted facade of invincibility shattered before everyone's eyes. Between 11 p.m. and dawn, a staggering 287 unmanned aircraft invaded the capital's airspace. 40 targeted Moscow and its suburbs, where 22 million lives quietly pulse. As the attack unfurled, the city's vast transportation hubs trembled in fear. The sharp blare of sirens shattered the silence at Domodedovo, Vnukovo, and Sheremetyevo airports. The air crackled with tension. Travelers froze in terror as alarms screamed overhead, the terminal corridors filled with anxious whispers and frantic movements. The Federal Air Transport Agency, an authority meant to safeguard the skies, imposed immediate flight restrictions. But those words hardly do justice. Everything unraveled in chaos, screens turned red one after another. Official reports confirmed 378 flights cancelled, delayed, rerouted, disappearing into a fog of confusion. Passengers flooded the terminals, clutching their luggage, desperate for answers. In Sheremetyevo alone, 20 crucial flights were swallowed by the fog of uncertainty. Outside, explosions echoed through districts Odintsovo, Romanskoye, shaking windows and hearts alike. Inside the aircraft, passengers cowered, clutching armrests as the walls seemed to tremble. The human toll revealed a brutal truth: domestic safety was an illusion. Moscow's leaders tried to reassure with claims of shooting down 32 drones, but eyewitnesses told a different story. The fear hung thick in the air. How could the country's supposed impregnable defenses be breached so easily? How did these tiny, slow-flying drones penetrate the vast and heavily fortified airspace? What technical failures allowed a swarm of hundreds to overwhelm Russia's most advanced systems in a matter of hours? A deeper, unsettling question loomed: was this just a tactical assault or a message, an unmissable warning from Ukraine? The city's nerves went tense as the night dragged on. The mysterious silence of the skies was broken only by the distant echoes of destruction and the trembling voices of those caught in the chaos. And the most startling detail of all: how could a single, coordinated rush of hundreds of low-cost drones disable Moscow's mighty air defense networks? The very systems designed to protect the heartland, Panzer S-1, Tor M2, S-400, had been rendered useless. This night unveiled their fundamental flaw: the old doctrine couldn't handle a saturation attack. Russian defenses, built during the Cold War with the logic of stopping high-speed jets, crumbled under the weight of swarming, slow-moving UAVs. These drones, flying at low altitude and in disciplined formations, flooded the radars and exhausted missiles. The magazines emptied, the radars jammed or blinded, millions of dollars spent on missile defense wasted on these cheap, relentless attackers. The very infrastructure meant to protect was now a vulnerable mess, an open door for the enemy. But the story didn't end there. Why was Moscow's once impregnable border so easily penetrated? The answer lies in systemic decay, an economic and strategic decline making defense unsustainable. All the while, Ukraine's ingenuity unfolded, harnessing a simple, yet devastating tactic. Thousands of small drones, launched from the border, flew hundreds of kilometers straight into the heart of the empire. The entire system was caught off guard. The question hangs heavy: how could they do it? How could these tiny craft strike at the core of a supposedly fortified superpower? The answer is clear: the old doctrines, the vast armored defenses, they are obsolete against the swarm. Ukraine's tactical flexibility has shattered the illusion of Russian invincibility. Tonight revealed a brutal truth: Moscow's defenses are fragile, cracks run deep. The danger is not just in the attack but in the vulnerability it exposes. As the night fades, one thing is certain: the war has reached the city's very doorstep, forever rewriting the rules of modern combat, and nobody, not the Kremlin nor the people, is left untouched. The mounting evidence clearly exposed the failure of Russian defenses to protect Moscow. Despite Mayor Sergei Sobyanin's claims that only 32 drones had been shot down, eyewitness accounts painted a different picture, one of chaos and vulnerability. The nation had been told the skies were under control, yet residents and travelers experienced a different reality firsthand. Suddenly, the sounds of distant explosions shattered the illusion of safety. 7 massive blasts rumbled over Tula, confirming that defenses had been overwhelmed. At the same time, airport lockdown spread beyond Moscow, reaching strategic hubs like Grozny and Makhachkala. The situation spiraled into chaos, exposing a collapse in Russia's security system. But the scandal grew even more startling. The diplomatic fallout was immediate and severe. A plane carrying Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan attempted to land in Moscow but was turned away. The capital's airspace had become a battleground, its defenses miserably failed. The failure to allow a foreign leader's aircraft to land was a humiliating blow to the Kremlin's image. It proved their safety net was riddled with holes. This night marked a catastrophic turning point. For the first time, Russia's reputation as a superpower that could shield its own skies was shattered. The world saw Moscow vulnerable, its most strategic airports paralyzed. But why? What was Ukraine's true goal in such a daring attack? The strategy was straightforward yet devastating. Ukraine aimed to strike at Moscow's civilian aviation and logistical nervous system. By doing so, they weren't just fighting on distant battlefields, they were hitting the heart of Russian stability. That night, everyday citizens waiting in airports felt the horrifying truth: the war was no longer distant. It had invaded their cities. Explosions reverberated around them, shattering their sense of security. Despite official claims that the attack had been thwarted, the reality was starkly different. Flight cancellations flooded screens, hundreds of flights grounded, thousands stranded in terminals. The chaos betrayed the truth: Russia's air defenses had been incapacitated. The government's attempts to downplay the crisis only concealed a deeper weakness. And then came the most shocking revelation: an international diplomatic scandal. The Prime Minister's plane unable to enter Moscow's airspace exposed a humiliating vulnerability. How could a superpower like Russia, surrounded by impenetrable defense rings, be so easily breached? The answer lies in a new era of warfare, one where swarms of inexpensive, slow-moving drones turn traditional strategies into relics. Ukraine's tactical innovation pierced Russia's outdated doctrines, revealing the limits of decades-old defense systems. The long-range S-400s and short-range Panzer S-1S, designed to intercept high-speed threats, are no match for swarms of low-cost drones attacking from multiple angles. When dozens descend simultaneously, they overwhelm radars and exhaust missile supplies. The cost disparity is staggering. Ukraine's hundreds of inexpensive drones cost a fraction of the expense needed to shoot them down. Russia faces an economic dilemma: redeployed millions of dollars for a few minutes of air defense. Every siren, every missile fired, chips away at its resources. Meanwhile, Ukraine wears down Russian power with economical, relentless strikes. Mayor Sobyanin's official statement that defense is held becomes increasingly suspicious. The shutdown of Moscow's airports, grounding of hundreds of flights, and halted air traffic serve as silent admissions. The unspoken reality: Russia's once-feared air defense network is crippled. Its radar operators cannot distinguish friendly from hostile. An invisible threat now lurks over the skies. What's next? The answer lies in the route these drones take. From border launchpads to the city itself, flying hundreds of kilometers, they expose glaring gaps in border security. The shield once protecting the regime is riddled with holes, and threats now seep through undetected. Ukraine's method isn't just about technology, it's a precise psychological attack. It exposes a fundamental weakness, undermines the Kremlin's control, and questions whether Russia's mighty defenses are truly impenetrable. For the first time, the world witnesses a superpower shaken by a swarm of simple, inexpensive devices, an unthinkable scene that could change the course of this conflict forever. The night over Moscow ended not with a victory, but with a haunting question: what does this mean for Russia's future? The answer might be hiding just beyond that darkened horizon, waiting to strike. In the chaos of the airports, ordinary travelers realized a chilling truth: the war was no longer distant or abstract. It had exploded directly into their lives, right there in their cities, disrupting their journeys and shattering illusions of safety. Despite official claims that the attack had been stopped, cancellations flooded screens, hundreds of flights grounded, passengers stranded in terror and confusion. But how did Ukraine manage to target Moscow itself? How could a city declared one of the most protected in the world become a playground for 300 low-cost drones? The answer reveals a deadly flaw in Russia's supposed invincibility. It's a story about technology deterioration, outdated doctrines, and a new kind of warfare that the Kremlin's defenses simply couldn't handle. On December 10, this vulnerability was painfully exposed. Russia's air defense systems, Panzer S-1, Tor M2, Buk M3, and S-400 batteries should have formed an impenetrable shield. On paper, they were mighty. In practice, they were relics of a Cold War mindset designed to fend off fast, expensive jets and missiles, not swarms of slow, low-flying drones.
Ukraine's strategy was simple but devastating.
Instead of high-speed targets, hundreds of drones moved together in slow, low-altitude swarms. Such tactics overwhelmed Russia's defenses, especially by exposing the weakness of saturation attacks.
The Russian Defense Ministry's claim of shooting down 287 drones? It's not a success story. It's an admission of failure.
Imagine a typical Panzer S-1 system, limited missiles, long reload times. Send 20 drones at once, and the system runs out of ammunition. Its radar cannot distinguish targets when dozens of cheap drones appear all at once, from multiple directions.
That's exactly what happened over Moscow that night.
Over 100 drones attacked from different angles, blinding radars, flooding command centers with chaos.
The fight was no longer theoretical. The enemy's low-cost, plentiful drones penetrated Russia's once formidable defenses.
The decayed doctrine, which relied on quick, high-tech responses, buckled beneath the relentless swarm. It was a new era. In this war, quantity and flexibility matter more than ever's most advanced hardware.
This exposes a stark reality: Moscow's supposedly ironclad security is cracking. The skies are no longer protected by Cold War giants.
They have become a battlefield of ingenuity and numbers, where even the most heavily guarded city can be brought to its knees by a cloud of cheap, slow-moving drones.
The question remains, how many more can Ukraine unleash, and how long can Russia cling to a dying doctrine, blind to the evolving tactics that threaten its very existence?
In the dark skies over Moscow, a silence haunted the air, then chaos erupted.
Imagine feeling the ground tremble beneath your feet, hearing distant explosions echo through the city's corridors.
On December 10, nearly 300 drones transformed the city's calm into terror. As the night unfolded, the once impenetrable defenses shattered, exposing terrifying vulnerabilities. Suddenly, the radar systems that Moscow's military depended on failed. The defense batteries, designed for a different era, reached their limit. Over 100 drones attacked from multiple directions, overwhelming the radar's ability to distinguish threats. The information cluttered the screens, confusing echoes of innocent flocks and deadly units. The systems, built to stop jet swarms, crumbled under the weight of slow-moving, low-cost drones flying in coordinated swarms. The night turned into a scene of confusion and collapse, as command centers struggled to respond. Amid this chaos, explosions ripped through the skies, punctuated by the deafening roar of shattered defenses. Command posts, electricity lines, and critical facilities became targets, with drone swarms seeping through cracks in the air defense network. Small, inexpensive drones, each costing around $20,000, caused millions in damage, while Russia poured vast sums into missiles that proved ineffective. The relentless barrage exposed a sickening truth: Moscow's defenses are no longer sustainable. Every siren, every shutdown, chips away at Russia's military prowess, draining resources, wearing down morale.
Meanwhile,
the city's airports, normally bustling symbols of power, became scenes of panic. 400 flights cancelled, passengers stranded, luggage abandoned on cold floors. The airspace shut tight, no flights could land or take off. Even the Armenian Prime Minister's plane, destined for Moscow, was turned away, blocked by the chaos. Official words, claiming the attack was repelled, clashed with the reality faced by travelers who saw the truth with their own eyes. The skies are no longer under control.
The inability to respond leaves questions hanging. Does Moscow truly see what's in its own sky? Or is it stumbling blindly, fearing accidental strikes on innocent lives?
But the real story runs deeper.
Russia's once fortified border and early warning systems are crumbling. A drone can now launch from the Ukrainian border, fly hundreds of kilometers, and reach inland cities like Tula.
This range shatters the myth of Russia's invincibility. The same drones that Ukraine employs are cheap and easy to produce, while Moscow's missile defenses, built during the Cold War, strain under the weight of this new, asymmetric threat. The air defense systems, designed to stop high-speed jets, are caught off guard by slow, deliberate swarms of small, coordinated devices. The night of December 10 exposed this fatal flaw. The illusion of security is just that, an illusion.
What does this mean for Moscow's future?
Against a backdrop of mounting attacks, Moscow's defenses are now mere shadows of their former strength. The gates are open, holes in the shield, vulnerabilities in the heart of the empire.
Ukraine's method is clear: attack not just with force, but with cleverness.
Swarms dive in, assaulting the core of Russia's military and civilian infrastructure.
The question echoes louder than ever: can Russia recover from this blow? Or has the horizon begun to darken for the once unassailable city?
The fact that Ukrainian drones can start from the border, fly hundreds of kilometers, and reach inland areas like Tula exposes a terrifying truth: Russia's border security and early warning systems are failing. The once invincible shield guarding the heart of this vast empire is riddled with dangerous holes. Imagine a citizen commuting through the city's metro, feeling a false sense of safety, unaware that even beneath their feet, ancient tunnels and underground bunkers might be their only refuge during an attack.
But how did this happen? How did a modern superpower, surrounded by imposing static defenses, become so vulnerable? The shocking reality lies in Ukraine's mastery of tactical flexibility and technological surprise. No radar operator can now distinguish between a harmless flock of birds and a deadly drone army streaking across the sky. The attacks strike not just metal and concrete, but the very psyche of the Russian people. Because on that dreadful night, December 10th, the very social contract that holds Vladimir Putin's power began to unravel. Explosions echoed like thunder across the skies over the city, and airports descended into chaos. The promise of protection collapsed, flights cancelled, airports shut, and the sky awash with enemy drones roaming freely. The entire population was forced to confront a brutal truth: they are no longer safe within their own borders, their own city.
This was no ordinary air raid, it was a battle of confidence, a psychological blow. In the wake of this chaos, an eerie memory surfaced, an instinct long buried since the darkest days of World War II.
Citizens remembered they could escape. Beneath Moscow's streets, a hidden city, a network of shelters, tunnels, and bunkers was waiting.
State-of-the-art Moscow metro stations, built to withstand nuclear threats, suddenly became vital lifelines. These underground labyrinths, composed of deep stations, secret tunnels, and Cold War-era shelters, might offer more than just history.
Could they become the ultimate sanctuary in this new era of drone warfare? Declassified maps reveal a sprawling underground network sprawling beneath the city.
Storage depots, living quarters, command centers, these sites could be crucial in the chaos.
Today, what once was a relic of Soviet paranoia might become the last refuge for thousands. The question remains: will these underground hideaways be enough to turn the tide in Russia's most crucial city, or is Moscow's invisible shield truly broken beyond repair? The fight is no longer fought on distant borders.
Now, the battlefield is within the walls of every home.
No sanctuary remains untouched by the chaos from above.
The war has broken through the barriers of security, infiltrating daily life itself.
In this new reality, safety is an illusion.
For those daring enough to face the truth, uncover the harsh realities behind this unprecedented conflict. Stay tuned for more insights. Your understanding of the true face of war will never be the same.
Thank you for watching. Until the next reveal.
Imagine a typical Moscow resident, commuting daily through the familiar underground tunnels. But lately, those tunnels have shifted from mere pathways to potential lifelines.
Places like Shelter Number 42, once a relic of history, are emerging as necessary refuges amidst mounting chaos.
With attacks growing more aggressive and air defenses failing against swarms of hundreds of drones, public fears are turning underground.
The psychological toll is undeniable.
What was once believed to be an impregnable fortress now crumbles in the minds of citizens. The idea of Moscow as an invincible city is fading.
The sudden shutdown of flights at the main airports isn't just inconvenience, it's a stark signal that Russia's global connections are unraveling quickly.
Rumors swirl about secret tunnels and VIP escape routes beneath the Kremlin, once dismissed as urban legends, now whispers of harsh reality. They have tunnels to run to safety.
But what about those in power? Ukraine's bold move to strike at Moscow's core isn't merely a military tactic, it's a psychological assault that plunges Russian society into paranoia. The city's once proud image of strength is now overshadowed by fear.
As citizens look skyward, to the smog-filled, drone-covered horizon, they seek salvation deep underground. That night, the myth of Russia's invincibility was shattered, 300 drones proved it.
The attacks didn't just disable weapons.
They tore apart the illusion of absolute control that Kremlin propaganda once built. Airports shut down, international flights cancelled, and millions of Muscovites confront a new reality: the war is no longer distant. It is here, on their streets, in their skies.
Putin's fortress, once considered unbreakable, now feels vulnerable, exposed by the very technology designed to protect. The drone offensive exposed a critical flaw: Russia's outdated defense systems were simply overwhelmed. Swarms of low-cost, slow-moving drones flooded in from the border, slipping through cracks that no radar could catch. The cost of these tiny enemies is minuscule compared to the billions spent on missile interceptors. Each failed attempt to shoot down these cheap drones drains the military's resources, turning the country's defense into a losing game of resource depletion. Every siren, every grounded plane, every radar blackout signals Russia's growing vulnerability. The authorities' claims of success clash sharply with the chaos unfolding inside their own terminals. Flight delays, stranded passengers, these tell a story of a faltering defense, of a nation caught off guard. Now, consider this: how did Ukraine manage to orchestrate such a precise, massive assault on Moscow? The answer lies in technology's dark side: saturation tactics that expose Russia's obsolete military doctrine. Their layered defense, once feared, is now obsolete against swarms of inexpensive, low-flying drones operating in unison. These drones overwhelm radar systems designed to track high-speed missiles, not these slow, persistent attackers. On that fateful night, Russian missile batteries were powerless. When Ukraine launched 20 drones at a single radar facility, the system quickly ran out of missiles. Its radar systems went dark, lost targets, and the defense collapsed. Over 100 drones converged from different directions, blinding long-range radar, opening gaps in the infrastructure, causing explosions deep within the Moscow region. The attack was a calculated failure of strategy, an embarrassing wake-up call. But what's costlier than a drone? The economic drain. Each modest drone costs just a few $1,000s. Yet, Russia's expensive missile interceptors, costing millions, are destroyed in their attempt to shoot down them. It's a systematic strangulation of resources, a relentless economic squeeze that leaves Moscow vulnerable. Every intercepted drone is a small victory for Ukraine's asymmetrical warfare. Every missile expended is a blow to Russia's war economy, slowly bleeding it dry. And the damage isn't only in the skies. The damage is to the public psyche, the core of the regime's grip on power. The president's claims of a successful defense fail under the weight of reality. Flight cancellations at Dovo and Vnukovo airports weren't just logistical errors, they were admissions of vulnerability. If everything was under control, why are hundreds of planes grounded? Why hide the truth behind official statements? Perhaps the real message is clear: even the strongest defenses falter under the relentless assault of swarms that operate outside traditional warfare boundaries. The key to understanding this new threat is simple: Ukraine's drones are capable of crossing hundreds of kilometers from their launch points. They fly over border security, exploiting the weaknesses of outdated early warning systems. What once protected the heart of the empire is now riddled with holes. Their centralized defense approach, designed for Cold War conflicts, is no match for these swarms of autonomous, cheap, and clever devices. In this new reality, the invisible shield crumbles. Radar operators no longer know if the signals are innocent flocks or deadly drone formations. The skies, once seen as an unbreakable barrier, are now a battlefield of uncertainty. These tiny enemies have exposed the flaws in decades of military doctrine, flaws that once went unnoticed amid grand displays of firepower. Now, they reveal the brutal truth: technological asymmetry can turn a superpower's own defenses into paper walls. Every drone attack magnifies a fundamental truth: the future of war is swarms, swarms that can take out the strongest defenses with ease. As Ukraine's tactics evolve, Moscow's reliance on outdated doctrine becomes painfully apparent. The question remains: how long can a nation sustain this economic and strategic hemorrhaging before the cracks become impossible to conceal? The ground beneath Moscow trembles with each new swarm, an unsettling reminder that the once invincible city is now vulnerable in ways no one expected. Imagine a local commuter in Moscow, every day riding the subway to work, suddenly finding that underground station is their only refuge from chaos brewing above. Places like Shelter Number 42, once forgotten relics buried in history, are now surfacing as vital safe zones amid an escalating nightmare. As drone attacks grow more relentless, the air defense systems, once considered impenetrable, fail time and again against swarms of hundreds of low-cost aircraft. The public's gaze shifts, no longer watching the sky, but instead seeking shelter beneath the city's dark, winding tunnels. This shift signifies more than panic: it signals a profound psychological collapse that threatens to topple the regime itself. Putin's fortress of lies, long believed unbreachable, begins to crumble. The suspension of countless flights at major airports isn't just a logistical hiccup, it's a clear sign of how fragile Russia's connection to the outside world truly is. Rumors swirl like smoke. Secret tunnels and VIP escape routes beneath the Kremlin, once dismissed as urban legends, are now whispered as possible lifelines amid chaos. But what about the palace and the regime's hidden vaults? Are they truly safe while the country's core is falling apart? Ukraine's strategy of bringing war straight to Moscow's doorstep isn't just about military targets. It's a psychological offensive, deepening distrust, fueling paranoia, and unmasking the illusion of invincibility. Moscow now looks skyward with fear, craving salvation underground. The city's once mighty defenses are exposed as myths. Shattered by 300 relentless drones, each one a symbol of the regime's fading strength. Airports are locked down, allies turned away, and millions of Muscovites wake up to the cold reality of their vulnerability. Elite tunnels may shield the privileged few, but ordinary citizens feel the icy breath of war creeping ever closer. Ukraine's unconventional tactics have rewritten the rules, exposing the flaws in Russia's military doctrine and revealing the stark truth: the spirit of a superpower is not measured by weapons, but by the resilience of its people. And now, the question remains, with the walls of denial falling fast, what will survive, regime power or the people's hope? On the night of December 10th, the skies over Moscow transformed into a scene straight out of nightmare footage. What was once considered an unbreachable fortress suddenly turned crimson, dyeing the heavens blood red. An unprecedented swarm of nearly 300 unmanned aerial vehicles lit up the city, a spectacle of chaos and destruction. How did a country proud of its invincible defenses suddenly face such an overwhelming assault? The sirens blared relentlessly, creating a deafening warning that echoed through skyscrapers and narrow alleys alike. Yet the true devastation didn't unfold in the air, but on the ground, at the very gateways that connect Russia to the outside world. Moscow's three main airports, Chermovyetsko, Domodedovo, and Vnukovo, shut down completely, forcing the cancellation of over 400 flights in a single night. You heard right, hundreds of passengers stranded, their hopes grounded, their journeys shattered in moments. Imagine the cloud of panic, luggage piling up, anxious faces staring at the blinking screens, the smell of fear thick in the air. Even the Armenian Prime Minister's aircraft couldn't land. Ukrainian drones, armed with a precision that belied their simplicity, had turned Russian air defenses into useless scrap. How was such a monumental breach possible? The very systems designed to protect the nation, billion-dollar weapons like Pantsir and Tor, became victims of their own obsolescence. Did Ukraine's tactical innovation expose fatal flaws? As the night progressed, the questions grew louder. Was this merely a drone attack, or a humiliating blow to Russia's international stature? Was the Kremlin's boast of a bloodless defense nothing but a fragile facade? The chaotic scenes at the airport sharply contradicted officials' claims of control. Reports of a minimal drone kill count clashed with eyewitness accounts. Explosions rumbled over Tula, and airport lockdowns hinted at a vulnerability previously considered unthinkable. The assault's ramifications spilled beyond the skies. The passenger plane carrying the Armenian Prime Minister was turned away, an unprecedented diplomatic humiliation. This isn't just about military failure, it's a crisis of confidence, a stark reminder that Moscow's so-called invincibility is now in question. How could Ukraine bypass the heavily fortified borders and long-range defenses that the Kremlin once boasted about? The answer lies in a troubling new era, an era where the technological gaps, the decay of old doctrines, and the strategic ingenuity of Ukraine created an offensive that no fortification could withstand. How did these seemingly unstoppable defenses crumble under the weight of a swarm? The answer is rooted in the shifting nature of modern warfare. Conventional systems like the Panzer S-1 and Tor M2, designed during the Cold War, are optimized for high-speed, high-cost targets. But what happens when a swarm of cheap, slow-moving drones, some no more than $20,000 each, flood the skies? When hundreds of these low-cost devices attack simultaneously? The answer: the collapse of the entire system. Radars become overwhelmed, missiles exhausted, and defenses rendered blind. The night revealed a critical Achilles heel, a tactical strategy Ukraine mastered: saturation attack. Instead of high-value targets, they flooded Moscow with countless inexpensive drones, forcing Russian defenses to stretch thin. Limited missile stocks and radar overload resulted in the system's failure. The Russian military's logic, built for traditional threats, proved obsolete against this swarm tactic. This was not just a technical setback. It was evidence of a profound strategic shift, one where economic exhaustion and technological asymmetry corner Moscow.
Every intercepted drone cost millions, money spent to shoot down a drone that cost a fraction. Meanwhile, Ukraine's campaign chips away at Russia's military economy, drone by drone. The false narrative of control crumbles further when the airport shutdowns tell a different story than official claims.
If defenses had truly repelled the attack, why would hundreds of flights be cancelled? Why would the skies above the capital be left vulnerable enough for such a bold strike? The harsh truth: Moscow's defenses had been paralyzed, incapacitated by a meticulously planned barrage. And the scope of these drones?
They took off from just crossing the Ukrainian border, flew hundreds of kilometers inland, reaching the heart of Russia's capital. Successive waves blitzed through the gaps, exploiting weaknesses in border security and early warning systems, exposing a fragile, decaying shield. This confrontation marks more than just a tactical victory for Ukraine, it signifies a profound change in global security. The old doctrines of centralized defense are no longer sufficient. The once invincible imagery of Moscow's fortress has been shattered, replaced with a sobering realization: in this new era, even the most heavily guarded cities are vulnerable to swarms of cheap, unmanned aircraft, driven by cunning tactics and relentless innovation.
The question now is, how long can the Kremlin's old fortress stand before the next wave hits?